So last year, around October 31st, I made a post on Facebook where I discussed three different types of groups that the Dark Mother wants to bring up again. At the time, I didn't know what the result of that declaration was going to be, but that day what I channeled was, you have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting, which is biblical, but it was coming from her. And she called out three different groups. So the first group is people who are Christians, people who serve any sort of Abrahamic faith, really, not just Christians. Any sort of Abrahamic patriarchal faith, they were given a chance, right? She let them rule their way for quite a while she was in a dormant state. And behind every single declaration of love and unity and harmony and etc., has been wars and abuse and corruption. And it's just, she's done. She's done. She doesn't want to be associated with that. None of her children want to be associated with that, because every deity, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, any male deity that you know out there is her child. That is her son. So she's given them opportunities to create followers and teach them and have their teachings represent her. Not only have they not represented her, they have used their beliefs, their dogma, to abuse not only feminines, but children, which are her two most protected groups. The second declaration, because, when she's talking about like human trafficking and all sorts of things like pedophilia, the fundamentalist groups are at the top of the list when it comes to that, usually. Now, the second group that she wanted to address were people who, in the front, when they're dealing with their community, their face is that of a good Christian, good Muslim, good Jewish person, whatever they worship. But in the dark, in their home, in the place where nobody else can see them, they worship her. And they ask her for things. And they require, they give offerings and they make contracts, but they never honor her publicly. And that's going to start being a problem. As in, she's given them time. She's given them time and time and time to get over whatever fears, limiting beliefs, because she's a mother herself, right? She's patient. She's given them time to show whether they're ever going to make a commitment to her publicly, whether they're ever going to recognize where they got their wealth, where they got their stability, where they got their protection. But publicly, they talk about God. They talk about the Lord or whoever they serve, as if that only the publicly acceptable, palatable deities are the ones that they acknowledge. They don't acknowledge her. So she's going to start taking it away. Just like she gave it, she left. She's giving me decades. In my head, I'm hearing decades. She gave them decades to decide. She's done. The third group, honestly, it's more like centuries, because these are generations. The third group are people who are magical workers, and they're in the spiritual community. These are people who were maybe kicked out of fundamentalist religions. These were maybe people who were always the outcast, being ostracized. What I remember hearing that day was her saying, I picked you up when you were broken. When you had nothing, I gave you everything. When you were weak, I gave you strength. When you were blind, I gave you vision. When you felt like you had reached rock bottom, I gave you wings to get out of there. And what do? You turn around and you use the power that she gave you to bully other people. You turn her into a weapon, because you know that she has a soft spot for you, because you know that she has seen you publicly recognize her. She has seen you do a lot of shadow work, but not enough. Not enough to where you don't realize that she doesn't want to be used as a weapon. She will protect those that are hers, but don't use her like a gun, like a loaded gun that you're aiming at everybody. Because there's a lot of people that use her symbolism. Like, she's associated with snakes, right? She's associated with wolves and cats and multiple things like that. Like, they use those symbols to create fear in other people. They use those symbols, anything that represents her, like they call themselves a witch, they call themselves a death, a death witch, or whatever, dark witch, whatever they want to call themselves. They call themselves all sorts of names, but they use those titles because they want to create fear in other people. And for a while, she allowed it because she was like, well, they've been through a lot of trauma. She gave y'all time. She gave y'all time to work through the pain, to work through the abuse. But y'all reached a point where I didn't want to grow after that. You wanted to grow enough to where you could be powerful, to where you could make your dreams come true. But once you got to the point where you turned into an abuser, you turned into the people who abused you. Now you became the bully. Now you considered that empowerment. You turned into the person who now, any wrong word and hex, curse, puppet, voodoo doll, whatever it is they use. And so you've turned her into a weapon, which obviously she's not okay with because she is a mother. How are you going to attract people to her and help her empower them when you are creating a narrative where she is something to be feared? She is something terrible and dark and sinister. Did you think that she was going to be okay with that? She wants to empower all of her children. She wants everyone to look at her as a protector, as a guide, as someone who is trying to help them transmute anxiety and depression and pain into power, into creativity, into assertiveness, into confidence. Although she will protect, and she is a badass, that's not what she's all about. That's not the only thing she represents. So that one is the one that, like, honestly, all three groups hurt her heart for different reasons. But the last one, I felt like a most acute pain because it's like, in her mind, you were so close. You were so close to being her favored children. So close. But you turned her into a weapon and you got greedy. And you let the power go to your head. And you let the position that you fill become something to play with. Something that made you feel like you could stomp on anybody who crossed your path without really acknowledging the fact that whoever you stomped on was also her child. She does not take joy in disciplining her children. So she will eventually, if one of them is being incredibly abusive, she will call them to task. But you've got to let her tell you when it's time to cast on someone. Don't be, because the image I got was people who, anytime there's offense, anytime that your feelings get hurt, anytime that you're angry, anytime that you don't agree with someone, hex, curse, black magic. And she's just like, okay. So all three of those groups, they're going to start losing power. You're going to start noticing. They're going to start losing power and privileges because she is removing her protection. She is removing her blessings. And she is removing her magic. All of it. She has given you plenty of time. And when it comes down to it, time's up. That's literally all it comes down to. You've had plenty of time. And time's up. You're not representing her the way she asked you to.